The lights flickered gently inside the massive spaceship known as Starship Dominion 9. It floated in deep space like a silent beast, its silver surface gleaming under the nearby star. Inside, hundreds of alien soldiers moved through shining corridors, preparing for the next big mission. In one corner of the ship, there was a room most species feared. A cold, quiet place. The safety briefing chamber. Every crew Zalfari scouts with their glowing eyes. Krelin warriors with thick armor, and even the tall, wise Kars would enter that room before stepping into a mission zone. There, they studied enemy layouts, practiced emergency signals, memorized escape routes. No one dared to skip it. Not once. But today, something strange happened. General Tarvek, the tall commander with blue skin and golden horns, stood by the glass door of the chamber. His yellow eyes narrowed as he watched the main hallway. Behind him, his assistant, a nervous young Krelin named Zorvi, clutched a digital tablet and blinked in confusion. "Sir," Zorvi whispered. They didn't stop. They walked past. Tarvek turned slowly. "Who?" "The humans." Tarvek raised an eyebrow. "What?" "They arrived just now. 3 of them. No briefing. They didn't even glance at the map screen. Just walked in." A cold silence followed. Tarvek's hands clenched behind his back. He turned to the giant wall screen and tapped a button. A video feed appeared. 3 humans stepping off the docking ramp. One was tall and broad-shouldered, with a scar on his cheek. The second was a woman, chewing gum, holding a coffee mug like she was late to a meeting. The third was an older man, gray in his beard, but sharp in the eyes. They didn't wear heavy armor like the others, just light exosuits and simple weapons. They walked straight past the briefing door without hesitation. "Are they crazy?" Zorvi asked softly. "No," Tarvek replied. "They're human." Later that day, the alien officers gathered in the war hall. Round a glowing blue table, maps floated in the air, and recordings played from past missions. The subject was the same. "Why don't humans attend safety briefings?" Captain Zell, a 4-armed Zalfari, slammed one fist on the table. "It's disrespect. They think they're better than the rest of us." Commander Vol, an older Kars with long white scales, shook his head. "No, it's something else. I fought beside them once. They don't ignore danger. They run toward it, like it's a habit." Zorvi looked around nervously. "But why? Every other species studies, learns, follows the steps. But humans, they don't need instructions." Tarvek interrupted. "They improvise." He pulled up a different screen footage from an earlier mission on planet Arian 6. Toxic winds, acid rains, unstable terrain. The video showed dozens of alien squads reviewing plans for an hour before the drop. Then, the humans. No briefings, no questions. They jumped from the ship, landed hard, and began clearing the zone with speed and skill. One of them even stopped mid-battle to help a wounded Zalfari soldier, dragging him through acid mist and shielding him with his own suit. No protocol, just instinct. "I don't understand," Zorvi said, his voice soft. "How can they survive? Without the data, the warnings, the steps?" Tarvek looked at him calmly. "Because while we prepare, they adapt." The next morning, the halls of Starship Dominion 9 were filled with whispers. Not about a new alien weapon, not about the Kars Council or a change in leadership. They were talking about the humans. The same 3 who ignored the safety briefing. The same ones who had vanished into the war zone without a single alarm raised. Commander Tarvek stood on the observation deck, watching holographic screens. The humans had just returned, alive, untouched, not even a scratch on their EX-O- suits. Behind him, Zorvi stood frozen. They walked into Sector N0. "Sir," Zorvi said slowly, "no maps, no drones, no idea. The ground was unstable. One wrong step and they could have dropped into plasma rivers." Tarvek said nothing, but instead, Zorvi hesitated. "They cleared the area in 22 minutes, rescued 5 missing engineers, and disabled 3 enemy beacons." "How is that?" Tarvek raised a hand. "Watch the footage." The screen changed. It showed mission camp footage from one of the humans, Sergeant Rook. The camp feed opened with static, then focused on chaos lava cracks, a broken pipeline, spraying gas, alien creatures crawling across the metal ground. But the humans, they weren't nervous. They were laughing. "Hey, you smell that?" Rook asked, checking the air scanner. The woman next to him, Lieutenant Vega, blew a bubble with her gum. "Yeah, smells like victory, smells like melted boots," said. The third, Captain Harrow, the older one. Let's move. No formal order, no hesitation. They split up, covering ground fast. Vega crouched by a broken panel. Fixed the heat valve in 30 seconds. Rook kicked an enemy drone into a fissure with one leg. Harrow reprogrammed a defense turret by jamming his pocket knife into its CPU. Aliens who watched the replay couldn't believe their eyes. They're reckless. Someone shouted Dot, but no. They were focused, quick, precise. The mission log showed not a single mistake. Not even one dot later that day, in the multi-species strategy room, Tarvik stood before a crowd of military officials from over 12 different alien civilizations. A hologram of the human team hovered above the table, frozen mid-mission. Rook pointing forward, Vega reloading, Harrow shielding the child with his body. These three, Tarvik began, refused briefing, refused caution. Yet they completed a mission that we estimated would need 8 trained squads. Captain Vole, the car's warrior with long silver scales, leaned forward. How do they work together without a command chain? They don't need one, said Tarvik. They think like predators. Silent signals. Eye contact. They move like a pack of wolves. Another voice rose. General Nix from the Telvar Alliance, a being of liquid blue skin. That makes them dangerous. Tarvik nodded. Yes, but they are not our enemies. Meanwhile, back in the crew lounge, Rook tossed his gear into a bin and collapsed onto a couch. He took off his helmet and sighed. His hair was drenched in sweat, but his eyes were full of energy. Vega leaned against a metal locker, sipping juice from a carton. Want to guess how many of them were watching? All of them, Harrow said, wiping soot from his brow. They always do. Rook chuckled. I bet they're still confused. Vega smiled. Let them be. They wait for instructions. We create them. Just then, an alien cadet, short and wide-eyed, walked past, staring at them like they were war gods. Vega winked at him. The cadet nearly tripped over his own feet. Later that night, Zorvi sat alone, going through human mission logs from other fleets. It was a pattern. On Nebula Outpost 4, humans walked into a malfunctioning reactor without radiation suits. Fixed it. Saved 30 lives. On Moon Echo 12, humans disobeyed a retreat order, circled behind enemy lines, and ended the war in 4 minutes. On asteroid A99, they jumped from ship to ship in open space just to rescue an alien child who wasn't even on the mission list. Zorvi stared at the last log, then leaned back in his chair. Why? He whispered. Why don't they wait for safety? He didn't expect the answer to come from behind him, but it did. Captain Harrow stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Because when you've lived your whole history in chaos, he said quietly, you stop waiting for permission to survive. Zorvi looked up, startled. Harrow smiled a tired smile. Your people believe knowledge keeps you safe. Ours believe courage keeps us alive. Then he walked away. Zorvi didn't move for a long time. He just kept replaying that line in his head. Courage keeps us alive. That night, Zorvi walked the halls of Dominion 9 in silence. He passed by the same safety briefing room. The lights inside were dim now, empty, silent. But on the outer wall, someone had stuck a small sticker, maybe a joke, maybe something more. It read, briefings are for those who hesitate. We don't human. He stared at it for a long time. Were they truly fearless? Or were they just different? Not careless, not arrogant, but perhaps something more dangerous. Unpredictable. As the engines of the ship hummed softly through the metal floor, Zorvi made a note in his log. Today, 3 humans walked past the safety chamber. The rest of us freeze before the unknown. But they walk right in, like they've already survived it in their minds. This changes everything. The simulation that went to Far Commander Tarvik was tired of the mystery. Every alien on the Dominion 9 had seen the footage, every mission log, every battlefield story, every death-defying act committed by humans. It all led to the same question. How do they survive? What we can't even plan for? Tarvik decided it was time to find out for himself. So he gave a silent order. Behind locked doors, deep within the ship's tactical AI core, his engineers built a secret mission, not a real one, a simulation. But this simulation wouldn't be like the others. It was designed to be impossible. No maps, no briefings, no warnings. It would mimic a real alien planet, unstable terrain, plasma bursts, cloaked enemies, AI-controlled hazards, power failures, shifting walls, chemical leaks, everything engineered to confuse, trap, and overwhelm. The goal? Test how the humans performed when no one was helping them, not even the AI. Not even luck. 2 days later, Tarvik summoned the human squad. Just 3. Captain Harrow, the seasoned leader with quiet eyes, Lieutenant Vega, sharp-tongued and fast-thinking, Sergeant Rook, strong, loud, and full of fire. We need your team for a classified mission, Tarvik said, hiding the truth in his voice. No problem, Harrow replied, as if they were being asked to deliver pizza. Vega popped a fresh piece of gum into her mouth. Do we get maps this time? No, Tarvik said calmly. You won't need them, Rook grinned. Good, I hate maps. They suited up. No briefing, no instructions, no questions. Just 3 humans walking into what every alien commander in the galaxy believed was a death trap. The moment they entered the simulation zone, the doors locked behind them with a loud clang. The lights flickered red, walls shifted, alarms blared, flames burst from vents. The floor cracked and split into narrow paths surrounded by glowing acid. To the alien officers watching from the control room above, it was terrifying. To the humans, it looked like Tuesday. Looks cozy, Vega said, ducking under a burning pipe. Smells like Rook's feet, Harrow muttered. Rook laughed and jumped across a broken gap. Barely catching the ledge, they moved like dancers through chaos. Not one wasted step, not one panic scream. No arguing, no second-guessing. When the lights cut out, Vega used her wrist beacon. When a security bot attacked, Harrow short-circuited it with a wire pulled from a broken panel. When a fake injured alien screamed in the distance, Rook sprinted through smoke without hesitation, hoisting the heavy simulation dummy onto his back and running back across fire-slicked tiles. Every trap was triggered, every hazard engaged, every AI enemy thrown at them. And the humans just kept going. They broke codes without guides. They rerouted circuits blind. They dodged falling beams like they'd done it 1,000 times before. The simulation, meant to be unwinnable, was being torn apart by instinct. In the control room, Tarvik stood motionless, his jaw clenched. Around him, engineers were whispering. They're adapting faster than the AI. That puzzle door was supposed to lock them in. They didn't solve it. They broke it open. They're not even thinking the way we think. One engineer turned to Tarvik, frightened. Sir, should we shut it down before it gets dangerous? Tarvik didn't answer. He was watching Captain Harrow's face on the screen. The man wasn't sweating. He was smiling. 30 for minutes after the test began. The humans reached the final chamber. Doors sealed. Gas filled the room. The lights went black. Standard simulation end. Everyone expected the humans to wait, to call for extraction. They didn't. Vega tossed a light bomb. Rook smashed the wall panel. Harrow pried open the vent with a crowbar. 3 minutes later, they were outside the simulation zone, standing at the exit hatch, hands on their hips like they'd just finished a light jog. Cool training, Vega said, brushing ash off her shoulder. Got anything harder? Tarvik descended from the control deck in silence. He walked up to Harrow, his face unreadable. That mission was designed to overwhelm you, Tarvik admitted. Harrow smiled gently. You should have told us that. We'd have worn matching socks. But how? Zorvi asked, stepping forward. You had no data, no plan. You didn't even know what you were walking into. Rook clapped him on the back. Exactly. Harrow looked around at the stunned alien officers and spoke calmly. We don't walk in because we're brave, he said. We walk in because somebody has to. And if you waste time waiting for perfect plans, people die. Double quote silence. No one could answer. No one dared. That night, the footage went viral across Dominion 9's internal network. It spread to outer fleets. It reached alien commanders in distant galaxies. The simulation that no one could beat was finished by 3 humans. In under 40 minutes, a new rumor started in the stars. Humans don't need maps. They become the map. And in the tactical core, a new file was created flagged in red, under restricted clearance. Its title, They Broke the Simulation. Their brains are wired for chaos inside the research wing of Starship Dominion 9, deep past the war rooms and strategy decks. There was a quiet lab filled with blue lights and glass walls. It was cold, calm, and made for thinking, not fighting. This is where the galaxy's brightest minds gathered, not to study weapons or enemies, but something far stranger, humans, specifically, their minds. Dr. Solari, a Zelfari neurobiologist, with glowing fingers and for silver eyes, had been watching the human mission files in secret. Again and again, She saw the same pattern, no safety briefings, no hesitation, instant action. And somehow, it always worked. So she asked for permission to conduct brain scans on a volunteer. To her surprise, the humans agreed without blinking. Captain Harrow sat down in the scanner chair like he was sitting at a dinner table. Will it tickle? He asked with a grin. Dr. Solari tilted her head. It will analyze your synaptic patterning, response delays, frontal activity. I meant your fancy scanner. Harrow chuckled. Will it tickle? The machine hummed to life. Green lights swept over his head. Readings flew across holographic screens. Dr. Solari watched with silent awe. Then her fingers froze. Something was wrong, or rather something was impossible. Most alien species had highly organized brain patterns. Krelins had perfect memory loops. The Cars had slow, deep waves of logic. Even the Zelfari had elegant thought streams that ran like clean rivers. But Harrow, his brain was a storm. Fast, chaotic, thousands of micro-decisions flashing in milliseconds. Logic was there but twisted into instinct. Memory danced with risk. Emotion and action were not separate, they were fused. Dr. Solari whispered to herself, It's messy. Captain Harrow opened one eye. I get that a lot. The report stunned the research team. Humans don't plan the same way. One scientist muttered. They act before the plan finishes forming, said another. They're wired to survive in disasters, Dr. Solari concluded. Tarvik stepped into the lab as the data finished compiling. He stared at the chart of brainwaves, jagged, sharp, unpredictable lines. What does it mean? He asked. Dr. Solari turned slowly. It means we were wrong. She brought up a side-by-side scan, one of a Krelin soldier, neat and perfect. One of Captain Harrow, pulsing like a firestorm. The rest of us freeze when there's no structure, she said. But humans, they perform better in chaos. Tarvik remembered a moment from years ago, a battle on Moon Tempest 9. A communication tower collapsed. Plans were shattered. Orders were lost. Tarvik's own soldiers hesitated, waiting for the next move. But the humans on the ground didn't wait. They ran. They climbed. They fought through smoke and falling metal, guiding survivors without maps or leaders. Now it made sense. They weren't defying rules. They were simply built differently. That evening, Tarvik joined Captain Harrow in the observation dome, where the stars stretched endlessly. I saw your brain today, Tarvik said. Harrow raised an eyebrow. You like what you saw? Tarvik smirked. It was chaos. Good, Harrow replied. That means it's working. Why don't you follow protocols? Tarvik asked. Why not pause and prepare like everyone else? Harrow's voice became softer. Because when your history is filled with disasters, wars, floods, fires, betrayals, you stop trusting the plan. You start trusting your gut. Tarvik was silent. Harrow continued, and sometimes it's the chaos that teaches you how to survive. The panic, the fire, the pain, it rewires you. He pointed to the stars. You see calm up there. We see storms. You see rules. We see opportunity in every broken piece. Back in the lab, Dr. Solari created a new file. Not a report, a message. She titled it, Human Neural Traits, Combat. Advantage inside, she wrote. They don't ask for safety, because their minds are trained by danger. They don't wait for instructions, because survival is their default mode. They don't rely on order, because chaos is their classroom. 2 days later, Tarvik stood before the Galactic Strategy Council. He played a clip of humans in battle dodging plasma fire, hacking doors mid-fight, turning scrap into tools, laughing as they ran through burning wreckage. Any questions? He asked. A long pause. Then a Krelin warlord whispered, They look like they're born from war. Tarvik nodded. Not born from it, shaped by it. And in that moment, every commander in that room knew. You don't brief humans. You follow them. They don't back down even when they show a silent red alarm pulsed. Across the walls of Outpost Meridian-7. Sirens followed seconds later. The corridors trembled as the sound of distant explosions shook the floor. Screens blinked, trying to hold connection with the outer sensors. Panic swept across the alien crew. The enemy had broken the line. Captain Vixar, Akar's battle commander with scaled arms and a long iron jaw, roared into his communicator. Fall back now. I repeat, retreat to secondary defense. Gate. Dozens of soldiers, Zelfari, Krelin, and Shalaris scrambled toward the rear exits, ducking from plasma fire as walls collapsed behind them. The enemy force, an insectoid race known as the Drax, had moved faster than anyone predicted. Chaos filled every hallway, but 3 soldiers didn't move. They weren't frozen. They weren't confused. They were human. Sergeant Rook stood behind a burning supply crate, reloading his weapon with calm fingers. Lieutenant Vega crouched beside him, slicing wires from a destroyed terminal and rewiring them into a portable shock trap. Captain Harrow, standing tall in the middle of the corridor, calmly watched the swarm of Drax soldiers moving toward them. Behind the trio, alien soldiers screamed, "It's over! Fall back!" But the humans didn't move. Not an inch. Rook looked at Harrow. "You staying?" Harrow nodded once. Vega tightened the wire on her trap. "Then I guess I'm staying too." "You guys are crazy," a young Zelfari scout shouted from the retreating line. "You'll die out there." Rook flashed a grin. "Maybe, but not today." The Drax swarmed in, black armored creatures with blade arms and venom sacs. 10, then 20, then 40. The humans didn't flinch. Vega threw her shock trap into the middle of the corridor. It exploded in a burst of blue light, stunning the first wave of creatures. Rook opened fire, targeting weak points with perfect accuracy. Harrow didn't even lift his weapon at first. He waited. He was listening. Then a soft hum, the sound of a power core spinning under the floor. He smashed open the side panel, yanked out the energy cable, and used it to electrocute an entire row of enemies like a live whip. Smoke filled the hall. They held the line. Minutes passed. More enemy screams, more gunfire. The walls were burning. The floor was cracked. The air was full of sparks and ash. Still, the 3 humans didn't retreat. Not when Vega took a hit to the leg and kept crawling forward with a knife in her hand. Not when Rook ran out of ammo and fought with his fists. Not even when Harrow took a sharp wound across his arm and used the blood as grip pain to hold the cable tighter. From the command center, Tarvek and the rest of the Dominion 9 crew watched the scene unfold on a shaky monitor. "Send reinforcements," someone shouted. "We can't," said the comms officer. "The teleport field's unstable." General Vixarn gritted his teeth. "Why aren't they retreating? They're outnumbered, injured, out of ammunition." Tarvik leaned close to the screen. "They won't retreat," he said softly, "because they weren't trained to back down. They were trained to end things." Back on the ground, the tide shifted. More alien squads regained confidence and turned back. One by one, they returned, seeing the humans still standing, still fighting, still protecting the corridor like it was their own home. The cars brought flame rifles. The Zelfari cloaked and struck from behind. The Krelin formed shield walls. Together, they pushed the Drax back. The humans had held long enough for everyone to regroup, because they refused to run. When the battle finally ended, the corridor was nothing but metal dust and broken machines. Rook sat against a melted door, panting. Vega leaned on Harrow, limping but smiling. Tarvik arrived in person, walking slowly over the blackened floor. "You disobeyed the retreat order," he said to Harrow. "Yes," Harrow replied calmly. "We didn't agree with it." Tarvik stared at the destruction. "That was a death sentence." "No," Harrow said. "It was a stand." Later, in the Dominion 9 war logs, an entry was made. Humans possess a combat reflex not based on odds, but on conviction. They fight when others flee. They stand when others surrender. It is not strategy. It is not logic. It is something else entirely, an alien cadet asked Vega once. Weeks later, "Why didn't you run that day?" She looked at him and simply said, "Because someone had to hold the line. And if not us, then who?" The Council's secret meeting for beyond the front lines. Deeper than the stars patrolled by warships, there sat a floating city made of gold and silenced the spire of consensus. Home of the Galactic Council. No battles were fought here. No weapons were allowed. Only decisions were made in this place. Big ones. Quiet ones. The kind that changed the direction of empires. And today, for the first time in 50 solar cycles, a closed-door emergency meeting had been called. 12 species, 12 leaders. One topic: humans. The chamber's walls shimmered with star-patterned glass. Inside, the 12 leaders sat in a perfect circle. The High Chancellor of Zelfari, her skin glowing like a galaxy. The Krelin Supreme Strategist, floating midair in meditation. The car's flame counselor, with his armored tail coiled like a spring, and many more. At the center, a 3D image flickered, the life of recording from Outpost Meridian-7. They watched in stunned silence. 3 humans, wounded, outnumbered, refusing to retreat, fighting until backup arrived, holding the line when every calculation said they should have died. The footage ended, smoke froze in midair, Sergeant Rook's bruised fist raised. In defiance, Vega bleeding and grinning, Harrow staring into the storm with calm eyes. Then came the silence. Not a word was spoken. For a long time, finally, the car's counselor spoke, voice low and thick like thunder. "They are not normal warriors." "No," agreed the Zelfari chancellor, her voice like wind over water. "They do not operate on fear, nor on logic. They thrive in madness," said the Kreelan strategist. "That should make them dangerous, but instead, it makes them necessary." A younger member, the Tailvar representative, barely matured, blue-skinned, nervous, broke protocol and stood, with respect. "Are we saying these creatures are better than us?" "No," the flame counselor growled. "But there's something we're not, something we don't understand. Then we must study them," the strategist added. "Dissect their ways, before they become a threat." "I disagree," said a quiet voice. It came from the observer, a neutral species who had no army, no borders, only records. He stood slowly, holding a datapad filled with human histories, wars, victories, failures, breakthroughs, heartaches, and triumphs. "I've watched their kind for 100 years, the observer said. "They are not conquerors, not invincible, but when the galaxy says, 'You can't,' they are the only ones who reply. Watch me." The room stirred. Then came the twist. A tall shadow stepped through the side door. Everyone turned. Whispers followed. It was a human. Not a soldier, not a politician, just Captain Harrow, dressed in simple black, standing straight, eyes clear. He had been invited by Tarvik himself. One seat was made for him. He didn't bow, didn't thank them. He just sat calmly, like he belonged there all along. The car's counselor was first to speak. "You skipped every safety protocol we ever built. Do you think you are above the rules?" "No," Harrow said quietly. "I think we're beyond the moment when rules apply." The Zelfari chancellor raised a brow. "You risk death without hesitation. Why? Because someone has to," he replied. The Kreelan strategist leaned forward. "You confuse us. You frighten some of us." "I understand," Harrow said. "You were raised to follow structure. So were we, once. But our world, it broke that." He paused, then looked at each of them in the eye, one by one. "You want to know why humans don't wait for orders? Don't ask for safety briefings? Don't fear chaos?" No one answered. Harrow leaned forward. "Because we come from a planet where danger was daily life, where storms didn't knock politely, where help didn't always arrive. So we became our own safety net, our own plans, our own solutions." He placed a hand on the table. "And when you put someone like that in space, someone who knows how to survive, when everything collapses, they don't freeze. They step in." Silence again. The Tailvar representative gulped. "So, you're saying you operate on instinct?" "No," Harrow said. "We operate on heart." He stood. "We don't skip safety briefings because we think we're smarter. We skip them because while you're reading, someone's already burning, dying, needing help. We act. Then we adapt. Because we don't have time to wait." The High Council was silent as Harrow turned and walked out. No guard stopped him. No objections followed, only thoughts and echoes. The doors closed behind him. Later that night, inside the council records vault, a new entry was created. It read, "Today, a human addressed 12 species in silence." He did not raise his voice. He did not ask for power. But somehow, everyone listened. Not because he demanded respect, but because he had earned it. And across the galaxy, one line spread like wildfire through whispers, warships, and war rooms. They're not fearless. They're just the first to move when fear arrives. The moment that changed everything. Third person, simple basic English, highly emotional and gripping to the very end. The galaxy had returned to a tense silence. After the council meeting, many alien races began to study humans differently, not as a species to train or restrain, but as one to observe with growing curiosity, even respect. But what came next was not in any scroll, treaty, or simulation. It began with a distress call from Station Ecliptor, a massive floating research hub orbiting a collapsing red dwarf, a place of science, not war, no weapons, no soldiers. Only scientists and children. And now, it was falling into the star. The station's orbit had broken. Systems failed. Emergency boosters misfired. They had 13 minutes before the gravity well crushed it into fire. 1,000 lives on board. Half of them, YOUNGLINGS. Council fleets were too far. Teleport links jammed. Escape pods malfunctioning. Panic swept across every communication line. No species had a plan. No one knew what to do. Except one. Onboard Starship Dominion 9, the humans. Didn't wait for the full report. The message hadn't even finished translating when Captain Harrow snapped on his exosuit. Lieutenant Vega tossed her gum and prepped explosives not to destroy, but to cut through blocked doors. Sergeant Rook grabbed a fire axe instead of a gun. Tarvik tried to speak. "We need no time," Harrow said. "But it's collapsing, that's why we're going." Minutes later, their ship blasted through the chaos. Most vessels stayed away, fearing the pull of the dying star, but the human dropship flew straight into it. Everyone watched on screens across the galaxy. 12 species, thousands of fleets. None dared follow, only witness inside the station. The halls were cracked and glowing red from internal heat. Screams echoed. Sparks rained from the ceiling like falling stars. And then came the sound of metal boots on the floor. 3 humans sweating, bleeding, coughing. Smoke ran toward the central hub. Rook carried a child under each arm. Vega broke through sealed doors with her bare hands. Harrow found the reactor core, disarmed the failed triggers, and restarted the backup rotation system manually. Burns tore through his gloves. His voice broke from yelling. But they didn't stop. Not once. Outside, commanders whispered over private channels, "They're going to die. They'll never make it back." But then, the impossible happened. A glowing escape vessel burst from the flames, carrying evacuees. Then another. The humans weren't escaping. They were sending others first. And last of all came their ship. Half-dash melted. Rattling. But flying. Inside the bridge of Dominion 9. Silence fell. Then came a soft voice over the radio. "Harrow, mission complete. All civilians safe. We're a little crispy, but alive." Tarvik exhaled. He had no words. Neither did the council. But the children who were saved, they knew what to say. From every corner of that station, cars, Zelfari, Kreelan kids. One message began to spread like a wildfire of hope. Humans didn't run. They came back for us. That night, the High Council didn't meet. They didn't need to, because the entire galaxy had already made its decision. No more doubting. No more wondering. The humans were no longer the reckless ones. They were no longer the problem. They were something far more powerful. The ones you call when all else fails. From then on, across starships and colonies, a new saying was etched into walls, whispered in war rooms and printed into flight manuals. If the safety briefings are empty, look for the humans. They already walked in.